All right, this is the in-depth analysis portion. This is for those of you just joining us. This is JRPGs and creativity. We'll see how that ties in. And zombie bachelor parties. If you want to hear about an epic time we had, if you're just now joining us and you didn't listen to the intro portion, we did a bachelor party and we did it good. I think it turned out amazing. It's a zombie RPG type thing, not RPG. It was real life
Yeah,
scenario.
zombies apocalypse.
It was amazing.
Till undeath do we part.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
so
the name of it.
go back and listen to the first part of this
Yeah,
episode. Even if you normally skip them, this one is a pretty great
Yeah,
story.
you won't regret it. I don't think you'll regret it. It's pretty cool, I think. So anyway, yeah, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the JRPGs. What are the
JR?
What are JRPGs? JRPGs?
Chirpings are JRPGs, Japanese RPGs. That's it. So it means they're role-playing games.
Man, that's the in-depth analysis
You
portion.
idiot.
Thank you for joining us for another episode.
All right, no, they're Japanese role-playing games. This is a genre of games that are focused on, well, a lot of things. So now role-playing games in general, like what do you think when you think role-playing games?
Nerds.
Nerds.
Oh, fucking nerds.
Nerds, people, zombie bachelor party nerds.
Oh, the worst.
Big podcasts in their hobby.
Ugh.
They are the worst.
But other than that, I think about like like a story, and then like you get to it's narrative based because what's the point of playing a role if it doesn't have a story to play it in, right? So
Right.
it's usually a story. You play a character, and it's usually in a well, it's not always in a different setting, but usually in a different setting.
Yeah. What about the mechanics of it?
Oh, leveling system. You got a lot of interaction, talking.
Yeah, because those all have their roots in Dungeons and Dragons. Right. So old Japanese role-playing games took their inspiration from D&D. They were it was a way to make role-playing games accessible to a wider audience because one of the barriers of entry to D&D, especially in the 80s,
Yeah, reading the books. There's a lot to read. It's expensive,
and
and
a lot of math, Seiko,
oh god,
a lot of like really kind of archaic, hard to understand. Unless you have someone, most people don't just play a tabletop role-playing game on their own.
right.
They don't sit down and be like, I want to play D&D, and they get a book out and they learn it, and then they, everyone is taught. It's like it's a game that you have to learn from your friends.
The grandfather, man.
Yeah, you gotta learn from somebody. It's like coming up to a complicated board game. Like, let me just watch you guys play for a while before I come in.
Yeah, right.
And so there's this barrier of entry. The Japanese role-playing game is a way to overpower that. So instead of strength, intelligence, dexterity, wisdom, charisma, experience points, all these things, they simplify it. Like the old JRPGs, they had very simple things like you had your level, you had your hit points, you had your magic points. Maybe armor would increase your attack power or something, but they made it a lot more accessible. And they had the computers doing the math.
Thank God.
And that's why we have turn-based combat, because that's a relic from tabletop role-playing games. So your classic will be like your fight, magic, item, defend, flee. Those options don't happen in real time in a role-playing game. Now, a Japanese role-playing game, they have some things that kind of distinguish them from Western role-playing games.
Mostly because they're in Japanese.
Yes. So first of all, they had to be translated. No, but also, what are some of your favorite Western RPGs?
I mean, I've played World of Warcraft a lot, but like I probably like Dark Souls is fun. I don't know if it's a role. Yeah, you level up, I think.
Baldur's Gate, like all
Baldur's
those
Gate.
older ones, like
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Dragon
Witcher, Dragon Age, yeah, definitely Dragon Age. The first one. Then they started getting a little bit off, but
right. The one thing they have in common with Western RPGs is they're both like managing resources like hit points, magic, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the differences are Western RPGs tend to focus more on realistic settings, like
realistic. Oh yeah, like castles,
realistic, like functional, like how a castle would be used in the Middle Ages. Like if you watch Game of Thrones, that's like a Western RPG. It's not real, and there's dragons, but it's how Europe was. It's close to how Europe actually was.
Right.
Culturally and architecturally. And
right.
Whereas Japanese role-playing games are more fanciful. Their settings tend to be more inspired by just like mythology or anime or just imagination. So like think about games like Final Fantasy. Like when you think about a Final Fantasy setting, what are you thinking about?
Oh yeah, it's like they're very different, and then also it's very dreamlike or
yeah, it's got dreamlike quality to it.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between Terra, a Korean MMO, and World of Warcraft, which is still like not, I wouldn't say it's like realistic, but it's a little bit more down to earth.
Yeah, castle. The bad guys are in castles, the good guys are in castles. Orgrimmar's a castle,
Yeah.
Stormwind's a castle. There's knights and there's orcs.
So that's one difference, is that the setting tends to be more fanciful.
Yeah.
Floating discs that spin for no reason.
Right.
Stuff like that. motes of Earth just float in the air and
Yeah.
yeah, stuff like that.
Flora and fauna is just ridiculously different.
Mhm.
It's not like bipedal humans or something. It'll be
Yeah.
like
Maybe a unicorn. Like in JRPG, it's like there's probably it's like
it
a
just look weird.
yeah. To us.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, a difference is character progression. So in a Western RPG, describe the hero of Baldur's Gate for me.
But it depends on how I make them, I guess. To customize.
Yeah, Mass Effect. Tell me about Commander Shepard.
I guess it depends on how I make them.
Tell me about The Witcher.
Well, actually, that is a character, the White Wolf.
Yeah, but is he a team player or a solo guy?
Oh, solo.
Yeah, so you're either they tend to focus more on like a hero.
Oh, right.
It's more about like a hero's journey,
Yeah.
a hero's journey with supporting characters.
Right.
And that hero is usually not always, but usually a faceless person that you can project yourself onto.
Yeah.
To fully customize. Western RPGs are more interested in customizing, letting you be who you want to be, let you put yourself in the game.
Yeah.
Whereas Japanese RPGs are different. First of all, they're more team based. It's like even Final Fantasy for Nintendo, you had fighter, white mage, black mage. You had like your cast of characters. They're more team based. Like you couldn't tell me who the main character is in Final Fantasy 6 or Chrono Trigger. Even like he's clearly the main character. Chrono is, and he's kind of got that Western kind of style of protagonist.
Yeah, yeah.
But they flesh out the other characters a lot more.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy like 8, like Squall's
like
he's not like a huge bad. I mean, well, he is, but I mean, like he doesn't think he is. He sees the team is better than he is.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm Commander Shepard and fuck you.
Yeah,
it's not like that.
It's very much with his team and like and it's
Final Fantasy 10.
Yeah, and it's the other characters, the supporting characters. It's all about like a we call it in media ensemble cast, right?
Uh-huh.
Like Firefly.
Yeah.
An ensemble cast. Mal's clearly the Mal.
Yeah.
But I guess for me the difference would be I would want to be any character in Firefly.
Yeah.
Whereas I wouldn't just want to be Mal. You know?
Yeah.
Whereas in a show that's like Indiana Jones, like you don't want to be short round.
Yeah.
You want to be Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's one of the big differences with Japanese and Western RPGs is character progression. Does the character, do you have a party? Is it just one hero journey? Are you able to customize that hero? Like it's very different aesthetics.
Yeah.
Very different preferences. And then of course the Japanese RPGs will usually have a strong anime influence. Like Chrono Trigger had the artist Akira Toriyama. I forget. Anyway, he's the guy who did Dragon Ball.
James Woods. You're trying to think of
James Woods, the voice actor. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of.
He was the artist for Final Fantasy.
I do voice acting and sometimes I do art. No,
I'll run with it.
No, but basically that's why that game looked like Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball was because they had the same actor, or the same artist.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, we were up late last night and we were at a bachelor party for this, so
a little slow.
What was I going with that? Right, so just general anime influence. I remember when I first was in a hotel and I saw like Cartoon Network. I was like, "What is this? A Chrono Trigger movie?"
Yeah,
like Dragon Ball.
Yeah,
I'd never seen it before. So, and the other big difference, and this is cultural too, is the age of the heroes. JRPGs are all about the teen heroes. Like, they always have young heroes.
Yeah.
Think about Lunar, think about Final Fantasy. Like you're a seed cadet, but you're like a teenager.
Yeah, yeah.
They're all about the teen heroes. Whereas in Western RPGs, how old generally are the protagonists?
Early 30s.
Yeah, and that's
Late
reflected
20s.
in the different gaming culture. Like in Japan, for a place that provides a lot of the greatest video games ever, it's still viewed as very much a child's hobby. They have a word called otaku to describe people like us who are in our 30s or 20s who are playing computer games a lot. But they're generally scorned. There's a lot of geek shame for people who are still playing games. Like that's kid stuff.
Okay.
So their market is mostly kids, and you see that reflected in the games. Kids are playing the games, so they want to see teen heroes doing teen things.
Right.
The downside is they can't really tackle that many mature topics with a teen game. Like Bravely Default, like they're all kind of young. It's generally lighthearted.
Yeah.
Whereas you have some dark stuff in a Witcher or a Baldur's Gate. Like
Witcher is mature. It's
Right.
meant for
and
30-year-olds.
And look at the people playing games in America. Like it's generally accepted that if you're a grown man, you have a man cave, and you're gonna play some video games.
Yeah, and the average age of the gamer right now is 32. It actually went up since.
Right.
In 2013, they did a census. In 2012, ESA, Electronic Software Association, is a group of people who make video games. It's a lobbying group, basically. But they put out a census every year and poll each of those companies to give them their data, and it's been moving up every year by about a year. So this year it was 2012. It's my job to stay on top of these. I'm the video game guy in my department. But it was 32 this year, and or in 2013 when they pulled. In 2012 it was 31. The year before that it was 31. The year before that it was 30. The year before that it was 29. It's been going older.
Yeah, and as that number goes up, we're seeing less kind of gamer shame.
Yeah, we're kind of the baby boomers of the gaming.
Yeah, we are.
Because every year
It's following us.
it goes, yeah, we get older.
Well, because we were kids when gaming boomed. We were kids during the Atari and then Nintendo.
Yeah.
And so as we've been growing up, like we've been the target demographic.
Yeah.
So
spending that money on video games.
You get the disposable income.
Yeah, we do.
So yeah, so we see that reflected in the ages. The protagonists, people our age want to play characters our age mostly.
Yeah.
People in Japan are marketing to a younger crowd.
Okay.
So those are some of the big differences. And I just see in general kind of culture being a huge difference in the field. Like when we think in broad terms and generalities of West versus Eastern culture, what are some of the things that come to mind?
A lot of things, the things we look at is like individuality versus cultural. Like we're very like the American meritocracy like myth of not meritocracy. Meritocracy? Yeah, meritocracy myth of like if you succeed by your own merit.
Yeah, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
It's why a lot of people.
The American dream.
Yeah, it's why a lot of people don't like to. It's a justification for people who are against Social Security or healthcare.
Yeah.
Because like I made my way in this world. Why can't they?
Yeah, it was just stupid. I've been teaching my son obviously the difference already because I'll say things like oh well, who built this road that we're driving on? Oh well, who built this car that we're driving on? Like where does this water come from?
And you see that reflected in policy. Like when you look at all the developed world, like Japan, Sweden, France. Like you look at first world countries, America always ranks super low on what like Social Security, healthcare, things that are about like helping other people and like communal thinking.
Yeah.
Community-driven ideals.
Right.
So and that's a reflection of our heritage. We came from pioneers, like out there rough and tumble. Like we've kind of inherited that.
Yeah. True. And so we definitely have that, and I think it's a moral failing, but whatever. And it's more importantly, it's just not useful for us as a culture. It's not going to win us in the long run. What that does in meritocracy is it splits the divide between the rich and the poor every generation. And right now we have the largest. I can't remember the statistics, so I'm gonna throw you off here. You're gonna have to Google this. I'm not sure. Taking off my expert hat, but like the gap between the richest and the poorest is bigger than it was in medieval times when there was nobles and literally peasants where they just were wallowed in filth.
Wow, if that's true, that is a terrible, terrible fact.
Yeah. So it's been widening every year too, and that's just in America. A lot of other places it happens and then they get self-corrected.
Yeah. So. And a lot of that is cultural. And we see that reflected in our games, right? We have this like strong individual hero that we're able to really have a lot of freedom with, right? Like you can make any kind of Commander Shepard you want. Whereas with the JRPG, he'd probably be like a sword and magic user or something. Like he'd have a specific role.
Right. Oh yeah, he's part of a team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And because he's part of a team, they have to make him fit as part of a team.
Yeah.
So we look at JRPGs, and as you were saying, with Asian cultures, they tend to be more
collectivistic.
Yeah, collectivistic, probably like more. This is for the good of the community. This is for the good of the group. This is for the good of my family. They have that whole honor system based on that. Like even though they're not actively thinking like this brings shame to my family, I don't want to go into caricatures, but that's playing into the subconscious, like the way they're thinking. Like I don't want to embarrass my parents.
Yeah, there's an expectation, and this is this happens with when we get Latin American clients, Latinos and Latinas, and we it's funny because our therapy, a lot of it is built towards getting yourself better, right? And it makes sense, but for them, they expect you to get their family better, kind of like they see it as a systemic problem, which it really is. I mean, obviously, but because of the culture we're in, I always focus for the person because I'm like, you've heard this, you can only change yourself. Not true, but it's true in the sense that nobody else values their role in your mental health, right? So I typically in our culture, whereas in other cultures they do, and they see it as like a familial failing, so like the entire family failed, and so it's shame in like Asian culture some. It's shameful for one person to go to therapy and then because it's like it's saying something about the whole family is what they think. Whereas like in America, it's not always that way. Sometimes it is. I'm speaking generalities, but it's a pretty powerful difference.
Yeah, I mean, and again, these are generalities, but I think you did a study and you had like a question on the site that says like, would you rather like chase your dreams but embarrass like but puts your family in a bad light in their community.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say it's a community that values frogs,
Right.
and or that hates frogs. Like, as a value, this community hates frogs.
Yeah.
And you're like, would you rather chase your dreams to be a worldwide frog competitor, even though it's going to embarrass your parents, or stay at home and like take over the family business?
Yeah, probably stay at home because frog competitor sounds really stupid.
Okay, that's a horrible metaphor.
I'm kidding. I get what you're
Family
saying.
business versus chasing your dreams.
Yeah.
Do that.
Okay.
On the study. I don't make studies. I'm not a scientist. So if this lady said, would you rather like chase your dreams or take over the family business?
A failing family business.
Yeah, a failing family business, so that you really help your parents out by doing
it. Yeah.
Like it's a good. And these are both, like, I think most Americans would have trouble making that decision, but they would probably go with chase your dreams more often than
right. Yeah.
And in Asian countries it would be the other way around.
Right.
And again, maybe they've done a study on this. We haven't had any kind of.
I'm not a multicultural psychologist.
But yeah, I think that's one of the big differences we see in JRPGs. Is we see this like team play, but strict roles.
Yeah.
You can customize, but not very much, because that's kind of how the society was for them.
Right.
This is your role. That's what you do. Whereas America, very individualistic, very you can rise to the top. We have all those myths on our side. So that's kind of my look on how culture influences JRPGs versus Western RPGs, because these are just things I've been noticing that were different.
Yeah.
And I was like, where would that come from? And I always look to culture when there's questions like that.
That makes sense. I don't know. I know we have a multicultural psychology class or whatever, graduate level class, and we talk about stuff like that. But it's always has a caveat of like, this is a generality. Don't assume this of every client, because that could get you in a bad spot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's something we did learn about the fact that like when we do interventions or things like that, it's more often going to be a familial idea, and sometimes they actually prefer you to bring in the family, things like that. So. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, there are people who study cultural differences, and I don't do that.
Now, we talked about how Japanese settings or Japanese RPG settings are more kind of like imaginative.
Yeah.
Would you say, I don't know if you've read any literature on this, would you say that they are more creative as a people, or is this just something you value more, or what do you think is influencing that? Why are they more imaginative?
Yeah, I think creativity is obviously a value that they have above us. I mean, look at our arts. Mm-hmm. Like it's dismal. If you say you're getting an art degree, a lot of people are like, okay, then what are you gonna do for a job?
Yeah, I think we pay lip service to creativity because they're always like, we want our kids to be creative. We want them to, like, we're trying, oh, that's so creative. We're like, good job being creative, but when you put that into practice, like, I want to get an art degree. Well, maybe you should go into business.
Yeah, exactly. It's not seen as like a win condition being creative. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you're finally very creative. Good. Now you win. Instead, it's like, okay, also go win,
Yeah, although living in South Korea, I haven't seen a lot of creativity being like promoted either.
Oh yeah.
Like it's very much like you do what your superior tells you. Go to the office, put in your hours.
Well, we're a lot about safety. I mean, like in our culture, I think specifically, but I think coming off as creative in general, I think creativity. I don't know. I just don't see us doing it a lot with our kids. Not that. In a sense of novelty, like we like inventions and things like that, but we also we don't seem to have a good grasp on how creativity works. I think most people don't.
How does creativity work? Like, what is that? Just like a neuro thing?
It's a neuro thing. No.
What part of your brain lights up when you're being creative?
The creative part.
Okay.
Yeah. The creative part, because that's the part of your brain where it lights up.
Okay. Yeah.
It's circular logic, but it's true.
But I like it.
Yeah. We see something light up and we go, that's the happy portion. And then there's a study that comes out where it's like, when you're happy, there's a portion of your brain lights up. It's called a happy portion. I'm like, who is impressed by this? But this stuff makes the headline. It's weird. I'm just noticing that I'm blending in with your couch. There's awesome trifle back there.
Nice.
Anyway, that's for the video, people. Yeah, so creativity, how does it work? Okay. So which one do you think would be more effective? There's a famous study that came out about it has to do with like novel shapes. Okay, so have you ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
Okay.
Drew Carey.
Drew Carey, yeah. Do you remember there's a skit they do that actually it models this experiment pretty well. In the skit they use like novel objects, or sometimes they're already objects like a foam sword or something. But let's say it's novel objects because that would be better for what I'm trying to. The analogy, novel objects, and then what do they do with them?
So like you just objects in random shapes.
Yeah, whole box of them.
Yeah, they take these a box of objects random shapes, and they put them together. Like now I've got an umbrella. Now it's a shield.
Yeah.
I'm a knight.
Yeah.
And they just kind of like pretend with them.
Which you would say probably that's pretty creative.
Right.
Right. So that's how they were testing this construct in one of the famous older studies. I think it was in the 70s or 80s. And what they did was they're trying to figure out, like how can we spawn more creativity? Because a lot of marketing departments, that's why I wanted to be in marketing in the very beginning. I went to one at one of my brother-in-law's office, and they were sitting around with Nerf guns, firing them at each other, and like squirt guns. They had all kinds of toys because they thought that it fostered creativity. And I was like, holy cow, I want that job. Right. I was like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, we're supposed to be creative, so they let us goof off a lot. It's good, it's good for creativity. Mm-hmm. And I was like, of course, me being skeptic, I was like, is it though? Yeah. So like is
it good for creativity, or do creative people tend to play their toys a lot?
Yeah. Or is it just one of the things that's intuitive but has absolutely no bearing on it? And so and it's business people, so probably not. I know that's offensive, but I just helped his brother do statistics, and there's a guy who has a PhD in marketing who was telling them to do statistics in a way that I would get put in front of the ethics board. It's just wrong. The whole way that statistics works is based off something called an alpha. I won't get into it, but the point is they manipulate that in such a way that they don't manipulate it. They leave it alone when they need to manipulate it to adjust for these things, and they don't. And he had them. They're just bad. He has a PhD in marketing, and he's teaching 2 statistics classes
at a college,
at a university, and he's dead wrong. I was like, I want you to come tell my faculty how you test for that. I would like you to tell them, and then I want you to watch the reactions keenly because you're a fucking idiot. So anyway, I just feel bad because I was like, I don't know how I want you to do it then. Here's the right way to do it. I'll show you in my book and in my notes. This is how you do it. How does he want you to do it? And he's like, well, he told me to do this. And I was like, Jesus. Here's the part in my book where it says that's dumb. Like, it's bad. Anyway, point is, so we don't have a good idea about a lot of things. And I was saying that, yeah, business might have an idea of why things work at their core, but they're not scientists.
Right.
They're just business people that have a degree in business, and then they do an experiment, and then they fuck up. We are scientifically trained, so we do science.
Right. So bringing it back to the
creativity. So they think I saw these guys popping off, shots and like having fun and stuff, and I thought, is that really what creates creativity? This task here is actually how we measured creativity. Was okay. So that seems pretty awesome.
Novel shapes.
However many novel shapes, right? They come up with. That's the dependent measure. That's what I'm looking at. Might have been a variable. I'm looking at how many novel shapes to come up with, given the same set of geodes. So these geodes. It doesn't matter. It's just that it's a different shape. It's something that you've never seen. Well, you've seen before, but it doesn't make anything. Like you'd have to put this and this and this together to make a cup. Look, it's a mug, and we say, okay, check mark. You got a mug. As long as it was a real thing, we checked it off.
Like those tangrams where you have a bunch of random shapes, and you're like, oh, it's a sailboat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's right. So we had them do things like that. Well, yeah, the thing we manipulated was a few different things. One was how basically how many shapes we gave him. Either we said one of the things we manipulated was give him 32 shapes or give him 10 shapes. Who came up with a more novel concept? What do you think?
The people with one group has 32 shapes.
Yeah, tons of shapes to deal with.
One group has 10 shapes to deal with.
Yeah, one has less.
And again, this seems counterintuitive, but in my personal experience, whenever I have limited options, I get more creative with the options I have. So maybe the more with less.
That's right, which is weird. Like people didn't hypothesize that because at the time that wasn't intuitive, right?
Right.
You're kind of like, well, if you have more to work with, you're going to make more novel shapes. But they didn't.
Yeah, that would be my first guess. But then I think about life, and I'm like, I don't know. It seems like I'm more creative. My back's to the wall, and I'm out of options.
Yeah, or even like it's not even out of options. It's like you've got tons of options to work with. We're not good at collecting that many things and possibilities and making them. And it wasn't. I think the time limit was like an hour or something. It wasn't even like time sensitive.
Okay.
And so that was one restriction. Another restriction was it was sorry, how much time you had. No, how many you had to make. You know what? I don't remember. I'm gonna find this for you guys to make sure I'm not leading you astray. But the more restrictions we put on, the more creative people got.
Mm-hmm.
So doing what they did in that office was wrong. Like you don't want to do that. You don't want to let them just goof off with anything. You want to tell them, okay, don't just think of new things. I would like you to think of just this week. I want you to just think about how we approach marketing on the internet only, or just through leaflets or whatever.
That makes sense because let's say you're planning a bachelor party.
Yeah.
And the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
How many ideas were we coming up with?
I mean,
good ideas? Not many.
Not many good ideas.
I don't know. We could do this. I don't know. What do you think we should do? Once we hit on that zombie idea,
Yeah,
That's when we got really creative and started coming up with
things
a lot of cool
exploded.
stuff.
Yeah,
We had a narrower focus.
yeah, you got a framework to start collecting your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird. I mean, the way creativity works, we actually become more creative when we have more restrictions.
Wow. Okay, so maybe that does explain the Japanese difference because they do have, in general, a more restrictive social society,
Yeah.
and so they're living under, and this is maybe it's just tied in, it's random,
Huh?
but they do live under. We focus in America more about individual freedom, individual choice,
Yeah.
and they don't, and they have more kind of structured like life. Maybe that harnesses into more creative settings in their art.
Yeah. That's an empirical question,
Yeah,
but it makes sense.
yeah, it's conjecture, but
Because when you think about it, like that we have the wrong, and I don't know if they do too, but I know.
I think they pay more lip. I think we pay more lip service to
Yeah.
creativity than they do.
Well, but we got it all wrong. Like whenever they say things like, I say, hey, what's up with this kid over here? They're off doing their own thing. If I see a group of children playing together, I'm like, just tell me about him. Not that that's bad, not bad to play by yourself, but I say, tell me about that. They're like, well, he's a creative kid. He needs to have all his own space and stuff. And I'm like, actually, that's not true. He should be working more restricted if he's very creative. Not don't restrict the kid. I'm
Put
giving
him in chains. Make him animate Disney
Yeah.
cartoons.
and I don't correct them like that. I'm like actually you should put him in an Iron Maiden. Then you get super creative. No, I just say okay, thanks, and I file that away with another reason why people are dumb. But I'm kidding. I don't do that. But actually I do actually
Maybe
because I'm like society has a lot of things wrong, whatever, and it's not worth addressing now. And I just keep moving on. It's not very useful.
It's a shelf.
It's a shelf.
You put it on the shelf.
Shelf that one. If we get time to it, I'll get to it. But because that happens a lot, especially in therapy, where people have a lot of different ideas of what's going on. I hear a lot, and I'm like, shelf.
So what I'm hearing is we value creativity a lot, or we say we do, but we don't understand how it comes.
Yeah.
And I really don't think that Eastern cultures value creativity more than we do, having lived there. If there's any people that are specialists in this, correct me, but that's not the impression I got.
Yeah.
But I think we've happened onto something that's creating more creative art in video games, and that might be part of the structure.
Yeah, and there also may be more of an expectation, or there might be more of a we're playing.
It's kind of a and I think there's a self-replicating mechanism, like a feedback loop, where in the past we've taken great risk and we've gotten great imaginative scenarios in Japan, and in the past this has worked for us, so we keep doing it, and we're not going to take risks because why do it?
I think that fills the gap because right now I see something going on where, first of all, there's creativity. They seem to be displaying more of it. And I do know how creativity works, but I don't know why their culture supports that.
Right. It doesn't seem like it would.
Yeah. So my idea is, knowing what I know about creativity, is that maybe that makes a lot of sense. Is that it's the restrictions that they get, and they operate within those restrictions, and also the fact that there's an expectation of creativity. Whereas us, when you make a video game, you have investors and you have the expectation to look just like something else. You've heard of criticism of AAA titles, right? I mean, it looks just like something else.
Yeah, it's like the way Nintendo makes games. Like if you look at their E3 stuff, it's just like, we went to this yarn shop and we're playing with balls of yarn. We made these little Yoshis, and there's some little Yoshis we made.
Yeah.
They're like, they're cute. And we're like, what else do we make out of yarn? And it's like, And whereas our guys are like, we gotta please the investors.
Yeah, they're like, you know what made it big this year?
Yeah. What's the American company doing?
What?
At E3, which one was the American company? Xbox.
Oh yeah, Xbox, Microsoft.
Right. And
yes.
What was their big review? Well,
Halo 5.
Halo 5, and people liked Halo, so Halos 1 through 4.
Yeah,
like no risk.
And having taken
the one risk they took it off. Like the Kinect was a big risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? That was too risky.
This is what I get, and for you business folks, you can correct me, but when I was taking business classes, I used to be a marketing major back when I was my undergraduate for like half the time, then I switched. But during that half the time, I learned a few things, and one of them was it's always analysis. Figure out how other people are succeeding and do that, right? Rather than make your own path. That was typically like not they didn't like that too much.
Right.
And so right now there's this idea of business where it's that guy's doing it. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna change it a little to find a different market niche, but I'm gonna do that thing.
They're not big on the Robert Frost like inspirational quotes.
Yeah.
I took the road less traveled.
Yeah, exactly.
Although we always misinterpret that. He's actually regretting that he took the road less traveled. It's not like go off and blaze your own trail. It's just like I wish I'd taken the other road. Read the whole poem. But yeah, so that might explain part of it. This American kind of like risk aversion.
Yeah. And I think we're just fostering it incorrectly. I ran across a couple of studies that I thought I'd bring up that have to do with how to foster this. So instead of popping guns around, which is super fun, and they may come up with creative ideas.
So what's a better way to do it?
Well, one is people are more creative. Okay, so this one you could probably already predict. Normally, right now I'm sitting down. and for this podcast, and I normally have a headset, wireless headset. And what do you do when you're talking on the phone with me, or like, what would you like to be doing for the podcast?
Pacing, going back and forth, walking.
Why?
The conversation flows better when I'm on the move.
Yeah, so you've already noticed.
Yeah, and it's something I've studied before with evolution biology. Like one of the theories, and it's evolution biology, so we don't know why, but one reason this could have been is that men were always like, before we learned agriculture, we were always on the move, hunting animals, and so we had to think at our best when we were on the move.
Oh, okay.
And because from what I read, there's a gender difference, and men actually think better walking, and not necessarily the same thing for women all the time. Maybe that's not true, but it's an older report.
Yeah.
Been a rough night last night.
I know, man. My brain's still a little foggy.
But, yeah, we're a little foggy. But yeah, so basically, on the move, brain works better. That's why we pace.
Maybe. Okay, so if I was going to play the skeptic's role, I would say, okay, but yeah, first of all, gender differences there, so it sounds like maybe there is. But I would also say, okay, could we come up with a story if we found out that we thought better thinking? Well, yes, because what anxiety does, or fear actually stops the blood flow. It doesn't stop it completely. It inhibits the blood flow to the frontal lobes, the parts where you're like your prefrontal cortex,
right?
Places where
you make
your thinking, rational judgments. It slows those down. That's why when you get upset in an argument, that's why I say, go take a deep breath. 10. Give you don't have much of a choice in this. You're going to get pissed, and you're going to get more pissed because you're not able to be more rational. So we already talked about de-escalating in arguments and everything else a couple of podcasts ago, but that's why it's a good idea. So I would say, well, actually, when you're hunting, you want to be primed to be fear, to have that all pump up so you can hit whatever you need to, or to fight or flee, whatever you need to do. I would say it actually is probably best if we thought best when we sat, because then you have time to think.
Right.
But evolutionary biology, no, not evolutionary biology. Anything that does post hoc analyses, I find myself skeptical, because it could be either way, and I could think, oh yeah, that could be the case.
Yeah, basically they're just looking at things and saying, well, how could that have happened?
Yeah.
And they're going backwards.
And I'm not trying to challenge their expertise. I'm just tempering what they say, which they may have, tempering it by saying, also this could be completely wrong and completely opposite. But
basically, I like to walk.
Okay, so
while I'm talking.
But when you're walking, right? What is that doing to your heart rate and your blood pressure?
Goes up.
Yeah, temporarily goes up, and your heart rate goes up, and which facilitates what? Blood flow
to the brain.
To the brain.
Places.
Right. So my idea is, and I don't know, but it's just that. Well, it's just we're just running our car so that we can keep our brain going, I guess, or to supply our brain with more oxygen, more blood, and while you're moving, you're also getting small amounts of norepinephrine and things like that, and so it's going to crank up your brain a little. So we probably get that little buzz, and we like it. That's my analysis, I guess. But so they found, as you know, we already kind of figured this out just by walking into it.
We stumbled upon it.
Is that there's a Stanford study that apparently it's all over. I was just trying to find the geode study so I could remember what the thing was. I couldn't find it. So
when your knowledge gets so specialized that you can't Google it anymore.
Yeah, you can't find it on Google. But I was trying to look for my class notes because I was like, this is a really cool study. It's that one that we were just talking about, the geodes, and I couldn't find it. But when I was looking for that, I was like, what was that study? So I looked up, study, and it's the first whole page was the Stanford study about walking and thinking. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess anyway, I had already kind of known that probably was how that worked. I said known. I already had a theory of why that might have been. But they found it, and people are going nuts about it right now. They're like, oh, maybe we should get treadmills in offices and stuff. And I'm like, maybe, or just go for a walk occasionally, or stand up and pace your office.
I mean, considering the rate of heart disease and diabetes in our country, there could be a lot of reasons for treadmills in offices.
Yeah. And of course, it's just that they hear one thing and they don't know the rest, so they think, oh, that's something I can do. But yeah, that's one way that you can help yourself out is by pacing, and that's what I like to do on the podcast.
And there's a reason why pacing is always cliched in media as the thing you do when you're thinking.
Yeah.
Like, walking back and forth.
Yeah.
Like the Sherlock Holmes trope of wearing a hole in a rut in the ground because you've been pacing so long, thinking so hard. We've known for a long time that we think better while we're walking, but now we have the Stanford study that's actually looking at it deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something really cool about it too. Okay, so when we become creative, we're not using the analytical portion of our brain. Is that common knowledge?
So when we're being creative, we're not using that. Explain what the analytical portion of the brain is.
Well, so when you say you're mulling something over, that looks a certain way, like in our brain. It activates certain parts of our brain. You're not using that whenever you're thinking, or whenever you're being creative. You're not. It's not that thinking is what does it.
Okay.
It's that it comes to you as inspiration.
Okay. I don't think it's coming up.
Okay. So that's the thing. Is that the parts of our brains that are active are the things that we're using. It doesn't come from us mulling over it. Actually, people tend to come up with
Flashes
ideas
of inspiration.
Yeah, insight. Yeah. The ways that comes up. There's a few different ways. Oh man, I actually have this from my cognitive class. I should have pulled this notes up, but I didn't. I didn't know I'd be talking about this, but about this portion. But it's the way insight comes into your brain is a specific kind, but it's typically into your brain, into your awareness, your consciousness. It's always in your brain somewhere, but your conscious portion of your brain, consciousness, is it's kind of ass backwards. It's not you mulling over it. That's incidental, and you can accidentally stumble into something.
Right.
But that's not how you become. Your best creativity is when you're not using the executive function portion of our brain. Because when you're not using that. So what you want to do is you want to have things like let people, have them pace,
Right.
Maybe give them some music, let them start just daydreaming. Daydreaming is great for that. But daydreaming, oh, this is really cool, I think. Daydreaming works well for creativity, but only when you don't realize you're using daydreaming for it.
Creativity.
Yeah, because what you're doing is when you start analyze. Have you ever got lost in thought?
Yeah.
And then you think when you realize you got lost in thought, that moment of being aware that you're lost in thought ruins it.
Yeah, you lose it.
Yeah, so you can't do that. That's why we practice mindfulness. That's like people say meditation. It's not fucking meditation, but there are portions of some kinds of meditation that do this. But it's attentional control. It's being able to lose yourself without using that portion of your brain. So mindfulness, which is something I practice. I used to think it was super hippie, but then I read all like the good shit about it, and then read about how neuroscience is nuts about it, and medical literature is nuts about it. It's really awesome.
Well, neuroscience, neuroscience.
That's science,
So
not psychology. Jesus. Anyway, yeah, it's really good for you. So you need to be most creative. You have to be daydreaming, but not thinking, okay, I'm daydreaming to be creative now. You need to just get lost in thought.
It's like when you're having a dream and you realize you're dreaming, you wake up. Like it's a dream.
Yeah. And people who do that are most creative and create the most amount of novel situations. And they did a study with this ties into no, so I was gonna bring up that one with the brain scans of the rappers, what was it? Freestyle rappers. So they put them in fMRI, which is a functional MRI. MRI is just a picture of the brain. Functional MRI means over time, so you just watch it like a movie.
So they have freestyle rappers.
Yeah, bring them in
MRIs.
Yeah, fMRI.
Scanning their brains.
And they say, do your thing. And so they just start making up raps. And they found out, just like we already knew in psychology, but that that executive portion of your brain doesn't light up for them while they're rapping. They're kind of daydreaming, and it just starts popping up.
That's cool.
Isn't that fucking fascinating?
Amazing.
Yeah, psychology, man.
Okay.
And neuroscience. Okay, so before anything else, that's what neuroscience is used for, right?
That's a good use.
I often bitch about, I bitch about the misapplication. I love neuroscience. I took neuro and I loved it. I love talking to our neuroscience department, bouncing ideas and saying like, what happens in mindfulness? What happens in ACT? Because I want to know in the brain how it looks, and I say, oh, that correlates with how we perceive it. Yeah, tool. Exactly, and to figure things out. So this is a great one because it's like okay, so here's some things I think about myself while I'm being creative. Is that true? And they say, yeah, actually, the portions of your brain that are responsible for this, this, and this are functioning.
Wow, and I know this is like the human tendency. Whenever you learn some new information, you're like, oh, of course, that
yeah.
This is the confirmation bias. As you were doing that, I was like confirmation biasing myself into thinking about all the times I've had my best ideas are. And all the times I'm remembering right now because I want this to work.
Yeah.
But all the times I've had my best ideas, like I'm in the shower, on the toilet, like I'm doing something else, right? Like just now I was.
He takes genius shits.
My shits are so smart.
no.
My IQ goes up when I'm in the bathroom.
We'll be like working on a campaign together or something, and he goes to the bathroom, takes a shower, whatever, take a shit, and he comes back and he's just like, dude, and like he has this cool idea.
Yeah, and I'm not going in there to brainstorm. I'm just like washing my hair, automated mechanism, like walking or washing your hair, and all of a sudden like, oh, flash of inspiration.
Yeah.
Did I stimulate my hair enough until my brain had a flash of inspiration, or is it this thing you're talking about where pacing, walking, doing other things with your body?
I saw on Facebook it says why all the best ideas come to us in the shower, and this is why. But I think that was meant to be rhetorical. But I answered the question I think on Facebook. I was like, oh, it's because
of this.
Yeah.
We should put notepads in the shower so you can write down your best ideas.
Oh,
that's where they come.
We'll get rich. They'll be wet erase.
Yes.
No, maybe not.
Perfect idea.
Maybe not.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about another trope in RPGs, grinding.
Yes.
Well, first of all, what is grinding?
Grinding is like where you're just killing monsters just to get bigger and better, so that you can fight some higher tier dude, right?
Right. Why do I love that? That sounds like the worst.
Well, it doesn't have to do with kind of like we were talking about in WoW, right? We did a Warcraft episode where I talked about the behaviors and leveling.
Yeah, and this is such a JRPG thing. Like there's gonna be random monster encounters.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of just like fighting the monsters, and sometimes you don't even have to fight monsters. You go out your way because you're like, I need more XP. You go back in the dungeon.
Yeah.
You walk in circles for a while.
Yeah. I do that.
Bravely Default actually gives you an option to turn the random encounters up by 100%, just so you can get more grinding. And if that's your thing.
I did that with Child of Light. Did you fight everything you came across?
Yes.
Yeah, because you want to get bigger and better.
Right, but why? Because when you think about it, like when you look at it logically, you take a step back. Like I'm level 1, I'm fighting blue slimes, and I'm killing them in 2 hits.
Yeah.
And now I'm level 99, I'm fighting ultra hellspawn slimes,
Killing them in 2 hits.
and I'm killing them in 2 hits.
Yeah.
Like it's the same functional thing. We just changed the skin, and you feel awesome. You're like, I'm so awesome. And you're like, you're level 100. I'm even more awesome. And then, but the bad guys are also doing that.
Yeah, but you still have that point of reference, don't you? Like if you went up to a blue slime,
yeah, and that's what was great about Earthbound, right? You can go back to like beginning levels,
and they run from you.
They'd flee.
Yeah.
And if you caught them, they would die instantly. You wouldn't even go to a fight. You're like, that's right.
Yeah.
You can be problems, you evil mushroom thing.
Yeah.
Rampaging mushroom.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
but why, like, knowing that logically, like, I'm on this treadmill, and I'm just fighting different colored slimes with still 2 hits per encounter. Like, why do I get so much satisfaction out of grinding? It sounds awful.
But is it the part where it unlocks something new for you, like a new option in combat?
Sometimes. But I think if I had, we'll do an experiment. I think if I had a game where it was like, your strength is 2, and you have 2 hit points, and then you level up and your strength becomes 3 and you have 3 hit points, like, I think I'd still enjoy that.
That's like that cookie counter game that was real big for like a little bit. Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, all it is like see how many cookies you can get. That's it, like in a jar. Like, because it starts out with 1 cookie per 4 seconds or something, and you can invest in two-handing it or something, and then it's twice as fast. Then like, a faster baking technique. And it's just a game where you're getting this number going higher and higher and higher.
Right, yeah. Like Breaking Bad had a Flash game someone made based on Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Where it's one of those games where just you get a passive income like
That's right.
Did you play it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you start off with like a meth lab in an RV, and like you can eventually buy 2 RVs, you can buy like better distributors, you get more money coming in, but you're spending more money, and it's like the same kind of thing, but just kind of going up and up and up and up until you have like moon bases, creating space meth, and like, and that's a lot of fun somehow, but
it is. Like, it's the whole point of scale, right? Like, you look back and you're like, oh, I was there, now I'm here.
That must be it, like the point of scale.
Yeah, like, okay, so the meaningful folks, like people who do like logo therapy is what they call it. I wouldn't recommend it personally. It's not an evidence-based therapy. But it's based on meaning, which ACT does a little bit of it, but it's values, but that's actually evidence-based. So it's just that the logotherapy people haven't been bothered to do their randomized clinical trials. So it might work. I don't know. But it definitely has a placebo effect, if anything, because there are people getting better who use it. But basically it's about assigning meaning to something. So like I see those games, I'm like, no, I'm not going to assign any meaning to that. I actively have to think that. I'm like, nope, it means nothing. I got to click. I turn it off. But I have to do that like with the executive portion of my
like with
brain.
The Ewok Village game.
Yeah. Like, there's a point where you're like, nope, I have to realize that this doesn't mean anything.
That sucked away like 2 hours of our life. We were researching for the Star Wars episode. I'm like, what's this? We almost didn't record that day.
Yeah.
We're like, Ewoks! And then we like forcefully turn it off.
I know. It was like 12:59. We recorded 1, and we were still like leveling up our Ewok Village.
We didn't research anything. Ewok.
And we have no illusions that this is it has any permanence to it. Like,
not like you will vanish when we turn off the
game. Like 3 weeks from now, I'm not going to give a shit about my Ewok Village. Still, you're compelled. Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It is pretty freaking interesting.
Grinding. All right, so we've talked about creativity, we talked about grinding. I want to know your top 5 JRPGs.
On
the spot. Because I like to push on the spot. I'll tell you mine first so you can kind of think.
Okay.
Number 5 for me would be Earthbound.
Okay.
I like it because it's quirky. It's like different. Everything else was like swords and sorcery and dragons. Earthbound, you're like a kid with a baseball bat fighting hippies. Yo-yos, and you're fighting like a very creative kind of another Japanese creativity RPG.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're fighting very creative settings like unwashed hippies, mean crows,
blue people.
The blue cult.
Yeah.
Blue with the blue cow.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I really like that game. It was rare for a long time. It's back on the Wii U Virtual Console finally.
Yeah.
But I just love. I had a lot of fun with it.
It's not more the same. You don't know what's around the next corner.
Yeah, you're eating cheeseburgers to get your hit points back. And, but it was more than just reskinning a game and saying like now potions are called cheeseburgers and now goblins are called crows. Like it was more than that. It definitely had like a very cool feel to it. So no,
Yeah,
I put my finger on it.
it wasn't afraid to make fun of itself.
Yeah, it's self-referential, and it had just like this interesting kind of zany story. Like, it was just a solid JRPG.
That is a satisfying game to play. I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. That's a good one.
So my number 4, and this might be on your list too. Lunar Silver Star Story Complete and Lunar
Yeah.
Eternal Blue.
But when did you play those?
High school.
Yeah.
As a teen, Hero.
Yeah. Oh, and also like I was I think we played it. We played some of it together.
Yeah.
The first
I didn't
one.
have a PlayStation, so
Oh, that's right.
we did
Yeah.
a lot of that game together.
So Lunar and Lunar 2, those games were awesome. That's definitely on
Yeah,
mine.
you guys ended up giving me Lunar 2 for my birthday one time. Like 15 years
It had cartoon cutscenes,
Yeah,
which were just fun.
yeah, it was really fun, like a lighthearted kind of like had this almost nostalgic like this is childhood and we're having fun like I said with JRPGs, it's
Yeah.
whole like team, but it's fun to go back there sometimes. And I don't know, I just the voice acting is all these were all new things for us back then, but
Yeah.
even the combat, like just going back and playing that again, it's just a solid game.
Combat was fun. Yeah, that's a good one.
My number 3 is one I'm just about I'm in the finale. I'm about to beat it. I just haven't done the game this week except for GT. But Bravely Default.
Ah,
Not much more needs to be said about that. We've been talking about it ever since I got it, ever since it came out. It's blowing everyone's minds. It's bringing JRPGs back as a genre. Like,
yeah.
it takes everything great about JRPGs and it's taking out all the annoying parts.
Yeah.
So really loving it. My number 2, Final Fantasy VI.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this one also a fan favorite. I like it for the music and the just the cast of characters. Like you felt it's very hard to get that many characters to where I care about them.
Right.
Like Chrono Cross tried to do that. They tried to have a lot of characters, but I just could not give two shits about any of them.
Yeah.
But Final Fantasy VI, I really liked the characters. It was really fun to see. And then in the ending, like they all had their own little finale. It played their musical theme for each character. We have a music episode
Sweet.
but each one had their own theme that would play in this big orchestral ensemble.
Nice.
So it's like and all the music kind of intermingled, just like their characters threads were. So it's like it's a musical representation of their friendship, and I thought it was really great.
Wow.
And then, to no one's surprise, my number 1 RPG, and the one I would recommend to somebody new to the genre, because it's not the most complex or the most difficult, but I think it's the one that's easiest to get into.
Yeah.
Chrono Trigger.
Not that one. One of the best games of all time. That was a great one. That would be my number 1 too. The only differences I'd make is I full Final Fantasy VI. I never played it. I played the beginning of it. Haven't finished it because I just came up to it nowadays. This is before that game came out before I got into RPGs, which Chrono Trigger was my first one, and David gave it to me. And I put a Final Fantasy VIII on there because that was one of those that like this is probably more of a product of the time than it is of the quality of the game. The game's great, but it came out I got it during like a summer, I had nothing to do, and I just sat down and just played the shit out of it. And I loved it. And if you allow yourself to get immersed in something, it's the same thing with the zombie thing. We kept saying like, let's make sure JT gets immersed, because if you choose to immerse yourself in something, you're more likely to come out saying, I enjoyed that. Yeah. So like that's why we also do the thing now that we learned in RPGs, tabletop RPGs. You say, nope, did you say that or your character? Keep them immersed because it's more fun that way. Actually, it's called psychological distance. It's kind of weird. We use this with in ACT sometimes. Like if somebody says, I'm a terrible person, you can operate on that. And this is a little silly. There's a lot of weird little gimmicks you can do, but this is fucking awesome. Like to me it is, at least, because of the science portion. I hate how campy it feels. Like mindfulness, when you sit down and it feels kind of like you're meditating for like 3 minutes. It feels fucking weird, and I feel bad recommending it to people. I always feel like they think I'm a hippie or something. But it's awesome. Like scientifically, it's awesome. And same thing with this psychological distance. Like if somebody comes in and like this one lady said, I'm a terrible mother. And I was like, whoa, hold on, let's take a second. You said you're a terrible mother. She said, yeah, I don't even like to say that. And I was like, why? What effect does that have? And what I'm assessing is her relationship to the stimulus, right? And she says, oh, every time I say it, it puts like chills on me, like, ugh, I never want to have to say that. I said, have to say that. Never wanted to have to say that. That's what I'm thinking. These are the clues of her relationship to that stimulus. And then I say, there's a way to distance yourself from that. This is pretty cool. Is you say, all right, so there's a bunch of different ways to do this. I'll tell you the way that you can do it, and I'll tell you the way I do it. But one way you can do it is you can sing it like a weird person, or imagine a really silly monster saying that. I'm a terrible mother. Yeah, I'm a terrible mother. Or do it to like happy birthday. You can do that. I'm a terrible mom. I'm a terrible mom. Yeah, and I have them sing it or whatever. You can do that. I don't do that. I feel like it feels too campy. So what I do is I have them say it. I say that again, and they say it again. Say it again. And okay, now keep saying it until I tell you to stop. And I look at my watch, and then they start going. They say, I'm a terrible mother. I'm a terrible mother. I'm a terrible mother. I'm a terrible mother. You know what that's doing. It's just like if you say milk 60 times, it loses its connotation and its denotation. Really, you just lose your relationship to it.
Word soup.
Exactly, and that's all it is. By uttering the words "I'm a terrible mother," it's not an accurate reflection of who you are, but it hurts to say. So once you say it a bunch, you can say it, and it doesn't hurt you anymore.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, and I'm like, see, it's just words. Remember, we have to learn to be compassionate with ourselves. We're gonna have those thoughts come up that I'm a terrible person. I have those come up, to me sometimes. Like, look, I should have done this better. I start shooting on myself, and then I say, okay, wait a minute, those words are having I have a certain relationship with those words where it hurts me. I can change that because those thoughts are going to come up, and it's your job is to change your relationship with those words. So anyway,
Final Fantasy VIII.
Final Fantasy VIII. What the fuck am I talking about? Where did I go, man?
I think you're saying because you spent so much time playing Final Fantasy VIII?
Yeah. Okay. So relationship to my stimulus.
I'm like the navigator bringing you back to your original train of thought.
Yeah, I'm just like an out of control boat, like just flying everywhere. Yeah, Final Fantasy VIII, top 5 RPGs. What the fuck? Okay, yeah, Final Fantasy VIII is my relationship to that game is one that was crafted over just everything pleasant being around it. Full summer days, having not shit to do, the huge screen TV all to myself.
That's like Joseph I found in last episode with Zelda.
Yeah.
Just like, I like that part of my life, and so I like that game.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I feel too. It's why a lot of dads get into football, with their kids, because they remember
high school being like
football.
Everyone everything was great when they were football stars, and
everything is awesome.
Everything is cool
when you're part of a team.
Football team.
How about that? Whoa. Wow. Okay. So I definitely put that on there. Final Fantasy X, I had a lot of fun with. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I don't.
But I had a lot of fun with it because I had a lot of time at the time. I like
that game. Had a
fun
mini game.
I like beach settings. Fucking love that mini game. And I like the idea of Sen being a huge thing. It went to shit other than that. Most things sucked. And Lulu had boobs. So
yeah, the boobs are Waka.
Waka's awful. Weird. Yeah. Yeah, so really, I liked the game. I did. I liked the water sword, the idea of it, tropical setting. I loved the Blitzball. I love Blitzball. Love Blitzball. Liked the cutscenes, except for the annoying ones, and everything else was awful. The sphere leveling system was cool.
Yeah, I do like the sphere leveling system. And they've used that in other games.
Yep.
Great effect.
They're figuring that out now. That's a cool thing. Yep. Those are my favorites.
Okay, so pretty much the same as me, but with differences on Final Fantasy.
Oh, you know what? Another one I spent a lot of time with? Super Mario RPG.
Super Mario RPG.
7 stars.
Of course, Super Mario RPG. That was a lot of fun. That was great because it was my first time to see Mario outside of a platformer.
Yep.
And they were doing like a 3D kind of thing for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because they kept that with the spiritual successor of that game with the Paper Mario games.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, now we are used to 3D, let's make it 2D again. But with a twist. So.
And that game, that's one of the only games I have on my phone that tells you how much I liked that game back in the time. Like when I play it now, once I'll go back and play it.
I remember finding Link sleeping in a bed, and I was like, oh, crossover, like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
Before Smash Brothers, I was like, what if Mario and Link met?
Yeah.
As a little kid.
Link could probably be like, you're a weird plumber, and walk away. But still.
Excuse me, plumber.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta say Legend of 7 Stars. What was your dream team in that game?
I went with okay, so I used Mallow a lot until that Gene guy came.
Yeah.
Just Gene?
Gino.
I think I used Gino, Mario. Shit, Mallow? No, it wasn't Mallow. Maybe it was Princess. I don't remember.
Yeah, for me.
Bowser, maybe.
For me, you have to use Mallow and Gino at first, the only characters.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got Princess and Bowser, it's like Mario, Princess, and Bowser, the dream team.
Yeah.
Goodbye, second tier characters who are made up just for this game.
Well, how did you craft your Mario then? Did you make him? You could change what he was good at.
What he was good at. I made him. I would make Mario like the average guy.
Oh.
I put like half into strength, half into magic. He's kind of like my all-rounder.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I had Bowser being the brute force guy and Princess on the hero.
Okay, that sounds cool. That makes sense because I put Bowser in there, but it was redundant because I made Mario because I figured he jumped on shit, and I was like, okay, let's just make him the powerhouse. So I just did everything power and HP. So when I put Bowser in there, I was like, fuck, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
So I took him back out. I think I had 2 magic users, Milo and Princess.
Yeah, Mario, because in Mario Party or in Mario Golf, Mario Kart, Mario Smash Brothers. He's always
Yeah.
like Mr. Average, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He's the Mickey Mouse of the franchise, so he's giving like fives and everything out of 10.
Right.
So that's why I was like, I guess even as a kid, I was picking up on that. I was like, okay, Mario, you get one here, one here, one
Right.
here. Like, what turn is it? Every level, I gave him like one in each. It's very methodical with him. And then Bowser's like, you are a brute.
Yeah.
Focus on
I don't
that.
have a choice. But
Cool.
yeah.
So any other thoughts on RPGs, or should we go get back to a wedding?
Well, yeah, we need to. RPGs, I think, is really cool. But we've already talked about a lot of mechanics of those, or at least I have the psychology portion in the Warcraft episode. Also on, we'll get to it. I touched on it again. Just monotonous
Diablo.
playing. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, we talked about RPGs a lot. I wanted to focus more today
Leveling.
about like the Japanese element of Japanese RPGs.
So that the thing that struck me with that was the first thing I thought of when you said that was creativity.
Mhm.
Because I was like, those games, like Terra, like anytime I play an Asian, because Terra wasn't a Japanese RPG, but it was a Korean ARPs,
Asian RPGs.
Yeah, RPGs. So anytime I play those, I'm always wowed by like how beautiful or different or creative things are. So I honed in on creativity.
Yeah.
So nothing much more to say about that for me.
Cool. Yeah, same here. Just like the cultural differences. It's just, I don't know. Which would you say in general you prefer, playing a brand new JRPG or a brand new Western RPG?
Probably a brand new JRPG. I don't know, dude. I'm really looking forward to Witcher 3.
Mm-hmm.
I love that setting. It's mature. This is something I want to see more of. Dark, mature RPG settings.
Right, and that's going to be a Western thing because
it's got like nudity in it. It's got like beheading. It's like the Game of Thrones of RPGs. Yeah, so that's why I like my fantasy too. Like dark shit happening. Like look at Reek, for example, in Game of Thrones. That kind of shit happens in the Witcher series.
Nice.
I don't even like combat in Witcher. I don't like it. Yeah, I actually zoom through the combat. I don't like it. I love the setting. So I'm looking forward to that one. But generally, like when someone shows me an RPG, I want to look at it.
Yeah,
how beautiful it is, or weird, or different.
The aesthetics and the weird, like imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I tend more towards JRPGs too. Although I love games like Mass Effect. And,
right.
I'm gonna get The Witcher because the combat was so fun.
Yeah. But charming. That's what I'd say.
Charming.
JRPGs. Because Ni no Kuni is a game we just recently bought, and it's a JRPG, pure JRPG, and it's fun, but there's still some mechanics I think they should get rid of, like multiple quest, hubs, make it instead. It's clearly a system rather than a realistic experience.
Right.
Western ones are looking more for realistic. They're trying to get rid of the archaic idea of go into town, get a bunch of quests, go do the quests, go back. It's a quest hub, the town. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And now it's a backdrop in like new RPGs. It's like you run through a city,
right?
But it may have nothing to do, or like maybe it does, but you didn't know it. Like all these werewolves pour in, and you're like, what the fuck?
One trope on JRPGs I forgot to mention is like the town you start in, the pallet town or whatever. The town you start in is always going to be like, here's where we sell wooden armor and wooden swords.
Yeah.
And it's like, what if I lived in like the city at the end of the game where they sell like adamantium mega swords? Like, are those people just better off?
Exactly.
Like it's always like, go out, fight a guy, go to a dungeon, come back to the town, go out, go to a different dungeon, or the dungeon's been reskinned as like a pirate ship or something, but still basically a dungeon. Go in, fight a boss, come back.
Yeah.
Get the MacGuffin, which is like a trope term meaning like whatever everybody wants, it's going to change the course of the world, like the One Ring or whatever, the MacGuffin.
Right.
So yeah, there are a lot of.
I don't like that. Like I think that's something that keeps me away from beating those games, but I still play a lot of those games.
Mm.
But yeah, I like the idea of like the way Mass Effect kind of does it now, where you run through a city, sure, but then it's like, oh, you see in the background a Reaper walking, and you're like, oh shit, and
you'll notice they changed the way to do cities in Mass Effect. In the first Mass Effect, they were like using it as like a quest hub, old school RPG style,
right?
And then in the Mass Effect 2 and 3, it was more like you go here and you get ambushed by traitors, and it's like the city was a smaller scale. It wasn't like this big vast thing anymore. So like they were just like events. It was like the zombie thing where each thing had an event on the map. I
like that. I think that's better. So yeah, that's my one caveat of RPGs. There was something I forgot to mention about creativity. There was something I found that I didn't know, and when I was going and looking for that creativity study that I still couldn't find. But there was a study that came out. Was it recent? I've got it pulled up here. Yeah, 2012. And it was talking about how alcohol actually increases creativity.
Well, Hemingway knew that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but shouldn't you think like, well, was that incidental? Was he just an alcoholic and also creative?
Nope, that guy's shit before he started drinking. You read his earlier stuff when he was underage? I don't know.
I was like, so for me, like, I didn't know that. Sure, like, you hear people who say, I can't create art unless I get high or like unless I get drunk or something, and you're always like, is that true? Or are you more inhibited?
Yeah, that
or
was a
what's
big
going
thing with the Bohemian movement in Paris and like the Belle Époque, like the beautiful times of Paris, like between wars when they weren't getting owned.
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of people, like Moulin Rouge took place earlier. A lot of people would stay up in that Montmartre quartier area, sorry, that where the Moulin Rouge is and where the Basilique of the Sacred Heart is.
Yeah.
Like that was a big. All these artists would flock to it during that time, and they'd drink a lot of absinthe, and they had this vineyard there. I won't go into it, but it was a very alcohol-based society.
Yeah, yeah.
Very much wine and absinthe, and then it
Yeah.
inspires us to create art.
Yeah, like Van Gogh talks about it.
Right.
Doesn't he,
Right,
absinthe
yeah,
guy?
exactly.
So
Picasso was doing that. Like they
Right.
were all just in that area, just making art.
And you never know. And like people say things like I am less. No, actually that's true. But well, people say a lot of things about things that they're taking incidentally, like
Right.
placebo effect of SSRIs. There's no evidence. Like this is filed with FDA. There's no evidence it works on any kind of depression other than depression that is like considered extreme, which means you can't function. It impairs you in such a way that you can't go to work. You can't get to bed at all. Oh, SSRI, sorry, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. All that means is like antidepressants or anti-anxiety, like Effexor. What's the really famous one? Fluoxetine is the name of it, but what's the generic? Prozac. Prozac.
Yeah.
And then fluvoxetine, things like that. Those don't work on any kind of depression other than the kind of depression where it also is comorbid with suicide attempts. So like
it's like the very worst kind of.
And even then, it's a very small effect, or I think it's a modest effect maybe. But yeah, so very small effect even on those of the people that it helped, which was just statistically significant, but it didn't have much of an effect, and most people weren't affected by it. They don't work for depression. It's a huge anyway. I'll show you. Please ask for citations. I'm not like a weird. I'm not like making this crap up.
Homeopathy.
Yeah.
Natural doctors are trying to kill us.
Yeah, that shit doesn't work. Don't do that. That's horrible. But most medications are fine. But SSRIs is like the biggest gimmick out there. Anyway, so whatever. I just wanted to mention that alcohol actually does work. It's not a placebo effect.
It does facilitate creative problem solving.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that cool?
Well, yep. So that's the thing we were drinking last night. We were doing that zombie thing.
It is a good thing indeed. Yeah. So I guess anything else on the in-depth analysis?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, let's move back to the feedback section.
Feedback.
All right. This is the feedback section. This is where we talk about our interactions with the community. First of all, thank you for whoever has written in, either past or present. We really appreciate it. It's awesome. We really look forward to these. We get like inordinately hyped about this.
Probably way more than we should be.
Yeah, we're like, oh, iTunes review.
It's like leveling up. Like, why do we get that excited?
Yeah,
but we do.
We do. So, our most recent iTunes review, we got one. It's by Brian Slady. It says, great show, 5 stars. I'm not really into video games that much, though I used to be. Now, tabletop RPGs is my main gaming fix. But after the shout out that Order 66 gave this podcast, I figured I'd check it out. So far, it's been awesome, and it's pretty incredible that you guys can put out so much content. I'm currently cherry-picking episodes, working my way up to the most recent ones. Just finished the zombie one. I'm no gynecologist, but I'd say you did a great job covering the topic.
That was our
Winky face.
That was our gynecologist episode.
Yeah, that guy. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, great.
Thanks, Brian.
A new D20 radio listener.
Yes.
Brian, thank you so much. If you guys want to leave us a review on iTunes, just you know how to do it by now. Otherwise, you probably haven't figured out podcasts.
Game Theory Podcast. There is another podcast called the Game Theory Podcast. They're not around anymore, but for some reason they still come up on the search. That's the one with the weird fingers. It's like a paper rock scissors.
Yeah, we're the guys with the statue of the thinker.
The thinking man. Yeah, and the little video game stuff above it. Yeah. So we also got a review on iTunes, or I'm sorry, on Stitcher a few days ago. We missed it the past week or two.
It's horrible at Stitcher. We don't know how it works.
Yeah, we're dumb. So, yeah, it was left by Kenna. 5 stars. Academics meet gaming is what it says. They mix humor, pop culture, literary theory, and psychology into an educational but fun show that really takes gaming seriously. Makes my commute fly by! Exclamation mark.
Yes, we like to change. We like to magically transform time into entertainment, like an alchemist.
Indeed, a little like an alchemist.
Thank you, Kenna.
Yes, thank you very much. We didn't receive any new emails, but if you would like to email us, you can at thegametheorypodcast@gmail.com.
We've also gotten a couple new Facebook members in our Facebook groups if you
Yeah.
want to interact with the community, which is just great. We haven't been super active this week due to
Yeah.
this bachelor party thing, but it's fun looking on my phone and seeing that everyone's interacting. Like, what's everyone gaming today?
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Like, we love seeing people do things. That's the whole point of the zombie bachelor party we did. Like, we love seeing people do things they love, and that we can provide a space for it. And then hopefully, if you guys have any questions, sure, we can weigh in on like whatever niche academic ideas we have. But we just like talking about games in general.
Right.
So we usually get on there and talk a little bit. It's fun. Yeah, come join us. Facebook page.
We should be getting forums up soon at the d20radio.com/forums. It's where a lot of the podcasts have their own platforms, so we can interact there too. But as of today, it's not yet up, so I'm not sure when that'll go up.
Yeah, it's been a bad week for us. Very busy. So yeah, great.
Also, Twitter.
Twitter.com. Yeah, I this week and last week, as I was preparing to take my week off of vacation, and during my week of vacation, I don't think I posted anything.
Right.
So I'll get better at that. But yeah, it's normally better. But I like posting like a couple academic things and a couple like just funny things, whatever I can think of. But I haven't been amazingly active, but I do respond to tweets at me and I retweet. And
yeah,
that's
somebody was asking us where music, like the ending music came
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's Pelican. It's an all guitar group where they just make melodic, cool music, and that was one of them. It's called Ephemeral.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when they play, oh man, there's this part of it that was so badass. I was like, whoa. And they used it in Dead Space 3, the ending credits, and so I was like, that needs to be the ending of our podcast, I think, because it's just so cool. You guys have heard it, it's the ending. So they were asking about that. We told them where it was. That is at twitter.com/gametheorypod, and you can find us on there. Tweet at us or do whatever you want, and we'll respond.
Right. So next episode.
Yeah, we have a couple ideas.
Yeah. Okay. So remember how I mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago that I was just fascinated by like cosplayers, like why do they do what they do? They're so meticulous. It's like Tim, like they can polish like the small details on things. And I really just want to sit down and talk to someone. Well, we had some people reach out to us, and I've reached out to some people, and we're kind of assembling a panel of cosplayers.
Cool.
Go on Facebook, look up Ardella Cosplay. She's a very talented Australian cosplayer. She actually just did a really interesting video on somewhat like feminism, but like not like just I'm an Neo Sarkeesian and here are problems that aren't really there anymore, so I'm gonna look for older games.
Yeah.
Like she was talking about when people get the I can't remember now. She said like people will sometimes say to a cosplayer or to just I guess girls in general, like, oh, I want to marry you, you're so great. Like on the comments, like you go through the comments there and you're like, please marry me.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's not really funny, it's not a joke, it's kind of weird. Like it made me put myself in her shoes and be like, yeah, I guess I'd be creeped out if I saw that on my comment thread. So she said she'd like to be on the show. She's agreed.
Cool.
She lives in Australia, so we have to juggle the time zones on that.
Okay.
Also, a very talented cosplayer named, her blog name is Mimi. I forget her actual name at this point because, again, last night was late night. But I saw her do some Bravely Default cosplay, and I was like,
nice.
I was playing Bravely Default, and I was like, I wonder if people cosplay this. I just typed in Bravely Default cosplay. She's the first thing that popped up, and she had a nice Annie SLB. She's one of the characters in the game outfit. And I was like, I wonder if she'd like to talk about that. So emailed her. She said that she speaks Spanish and English as a second language, and she says her English is not very good, but that her sister is very good at English and can help her if there's problems in progress with translation.
Oh, cool.
So we have a lady in Spain, a lady in Australia, and a local American who does Magic the Gathering cosplay who also needs to be on the show. So I think we're doing like a panel discussion, just kind of picking their brains. So if we can set that up, we can do that next week.
That'd be cool. And if not, we've got a couple ideas, but one of which is one of the director of my clinic is clinic at the University of Mississippi. Sorry, where we see people is he's a friend of mine. He's actually real cool, and I was talking about he's like one of his specialties is anxiety and fear, and he knows all about it. So I was talking to him one time about horror movies and horror games, and that came up, and we started talking. I was like, dude, I run a podcast. Well, he knows I run a podcast, but I was like, do you want to be on my podcast? He was like, sure, yeah, set it up sometime. So if that works out, I might do that. Whatever.
Trying to do a couple, so probably a guest episode next week.
Yeah.
But who it will be will depend on scheduling.
And if neither of them work out, we will get something up. So
there will be an episode.
Yes. But
So until then,
yes, I've been Jeremiah, one of your co-hosts.
and I'm the other co-host, David, and we have to go watch one of our best friends get married.
So welcome to the game. Or thanks for listening to the Game Theory podcast.